Hello, Buckeye fans. Steve Hellwagon and Patrick Murphy here. We just finished up talking with Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, and Chip Kelly. We got 3 coaches today instead of 2, heading into next week against Iowa. Also talked some of the Michigan State game. Steve, we'll start with Coach Day. He was asked a lot about quarterbacks, specifically Will Howard, a lot about kind of his aggression on fourth down. Anything in particular that stood out to you from his time?
No, I think a lot of it was what was expected. I think a lot of people who watch the games weren't, and again, degrees of unpleasedness with some of these things. When does it become nitpicking and when is it actual criticism of what happened? But Will Howard definitely threw into double coverage for an interception. And I think that, as you go back and you look at it, you see, is he locking in on receivers? Are these trends that are going to come back to bite them against better teams, particularly a great defensive team that's coming in here on Saturday with Iowa? Is this a trend that's going to continue, to bite Ohio State, possibly cost them a game at some point? I think Coach talked a lot about progressions and, getting from 1, 2, 3, 4 and that type of thing. And your eyes kind of lead you where the ball is going to go. And so, is Howard a finished product on all this? No. I think they said that perhaps he was running some different plays and different patterns that maybe they hadn't repped quite as much. And so they took note of that and said if we're going to continue to do some of these type plays that they need to work on them a little bit more in practice so it's not, a different concept when you get out there in the game. And, you just think a little bit about it. Again, every play is its own thing and something different breaks down. There were a lot of questions about Sonny Styles too.
Yeah, and we'll get to him.
Yeah, is he playing up to his capability? The guy sitting at home on his couch is saying, no, he took a bad step there. He missed on a tackle there. But the coaches who coach him are standing by him and saying it's a progression and he's getting better. So he's the best they've got. So that's what they're going with.
Continuing with Howard before we jump over to defense, I think you look at most of his throws, they're on target. I mean, I think you break down like the fourth down throw to Emeka Egbuka, even the fourth down touchdown throw to G. Scott. You're seeing why he's out there, right?
Yeah.
He is clearly the best guy for the job. But then the interception, it's 2 guys. One guy the corner doesn't follow Jeremiah Smith because there's safety help over the top. And, maybe that's just a good play by Michigan State, right? I mean, those guys are, they may not be Ohio State level, but they are Big Ten corners who are going to make plays from time to time. Will Howard also a few drives before almost threw the interception in the end zone. I think he was looking for Jeremiah there. Again, safety comes over. Should Will Howard see the safety? Could he put more zip on the ball to get it there before the safety does? Yes, but I think you use the word nitpicking. And look, we're going to do that. This is a national championship or bust, type of team. But he's making most of the plays, and I think you learn from these type of plays. And I kind of think that's where they're going with their conversation is that, these are things he's doing for the first time against defenses he hasn't played before. And I think more often than not, it's been good. Can it keep growing? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Also from Coach Day, talking about the fourth downs, he was asked if he's being more aggressive this year. And I thought it was interesting. He talked about how much he loves this team and he gets up out of bed every day and wants to do everything he can for this team to reach its goals, these players to reach their goals. And, that includes maybe being more aggressive. You saw that on the fourth downs I mentioned. It is, I think, also a factor that he doesn't have to worry about each play and everything. He can consider that more CEO role.
Yeah.
But it did seem like he's willing to be a bit more aggressive when it's there. They're not going for it on every fourth down.
Yeah, I think that he's being logical about it. And I think that the instances where they did go on fourth down last week made a lot of sense. I think maybe they were 3 of 4 on fourth down with 2 touchdowns, which, is pretty remarkable stuff when you come right down to it. I mean, late in the game, you're up 31-7, I think, when they went for it, with the Egbuka play. But certainly 4th and goal at the 3-yard line. to punch it in and get the touchdown. That was a clutch play, a clutch throw, and a good route by G, and he hauled it in and held on to it. So I think you have to give them some credit for being able to execute in those clutch situations. And as they said, Howard made 2 good throws on those fourth downs to convert those plays. So got to give him tremendous credit for what he was able to do in those instances. And, again, you got the better team. Going for it on fourth down is really not as big of a risk as it may seem.
Sure.
I mean, if you honestly have the better team over a 60-minute period in some of these games, it's not as big a risk perhaps as it could be in some other games.
Yeah, well, and Chip Kelly talked about too that trusting the defense. Okay, are we going to do we feel comfortable putting our defense in a situation where, we may not get it, but we trust them to get the stop. Obviously, the fourth down, I think it was on the 3-yard line.
Yeah, 4th and goal to 3.
You feel pretty confident that your defense can get a stop and force the punt. The other one, obviously, further down the field, but the defense had kind of picked it up at that point, and they do trust this defense to get stops. Speaking of Chip Kelly, who was asked, has he found anything that he has surprised him about being an offensive coordinator and being up in the booth? And he said, well, you can go pee between series, which I thought was quite funny. Both he and Jim Knowles were in good moods.
They were in a good frame of mind.
Yeah, I think.
I'm tired.
No, Kelly.
This road trip from last week took a lot of starch out of me.
Yeah, up till two-ish in the morning having to drive back.
Night.
Yeah, it was a lot. But Chip Kelly was asked about kind of what's left to show in this playbook. What haven't they shown yet, or how much haven't they shown yet? And I think each week we've seen like little things here or there, right? And Chip Kelly's asked about this a couple weeks ago, and he said like they don't hold anything back, but it depends on the defense that they're playing and what they think they can do. But I think there's still a lot here that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, no doubt about it. And the creativity, they just kind of ooze of creativity. That end around that they ran, for the touchdown with Jeremiah Smith, that completely caught Michigan State flat-footed. They didn't have any idea that was even a possibility, and nobody stayed home. And it just it was a tremendous play. Obviously, a good play call, and in those clutch moments, those key situations, they always seem to have the trump card to play on the opposing defense. So I'm here for it. They better have their best A-game stuff this week. Ryan Day talked about how Iowa is going to challenge this entire building. This entire building is a big building. It's a big building. Is being challenged.
Soccer players over there.
Soccer players on the other side
too.
Yes, this entire building is being challenged this week by what Iowa can bring to the table. So, to me, that was an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, Chip Kelly referred to it as a chess match where the pieces are constantly moving because it's not just one person reacts, one person does something, another person reacts. There's guys all over the field. I'm sure you've watched some of Iowa. What do you think the biggest test will be? Is it just that scheme overall with Parker and what he does? And Coach Day talked about, they recruit the guys, they develop the guys for that system. It's not necessarily 4- and 5-star guys. What is the challenge for Iowa?
Well, I think offensively, Ohio State's got to be able to establish the run. And I think that's the first and foremost thing. It was a little more difficult this past week against Michigan State than it was against Marshall, as it figured to be. You didn't have that big hitter, although Henderson did have like a 37-yard run, I think, at one point. Nothing that kind of got out the gate to the house type thing. It was weird that Howard and Smith scored the rushing touchdowns and Henderson and Judkins didn't. Henderson had an amazing game picking up blitzes.
Yes.
And, that's going to make him a lot of money probably when he shows that on his tape to pro scouts that he's a willing and able blocker. That's not something he did a whole hell of a lot of 2 years ago. So to me, he is really transitioning his game to the, I wouldn't say from college to NFL, but to a higher level.
Yeah.
Of being a complete running back. And so to me, I think everything for Ohio State offensively begins with trying to establish the run against this great Iowa defense. It's going to be difficult. I think that you got to try and get it to 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 by running and getting 5 and 6 yards on first down. And if you can't do that, then it really puts them a little bit behind the 8 ball because then it puts the onus on Howard and the receivers to try and pick all those up. And, they're going to get their share.
Yeah.
Iowa's going to get their share. I have not come up with a score yet for this game. I started watching Iowa today against Iowa State. Very impressed with what I saw out of Iowa. They blew that game. There's no two ways about it. There was a series right before halftime. They had it 1st and goal at like the 3-yard line, and they didn't put it in the end zone, and they had to kick a field goal, and ultimately they lose the game by a point, 20-19. Their defense let them down in the final minute. They allowed a 30-yard pass down the sideline, just completely uncharacteristic of the Iowa defense to allow that, and Iowa State got in position to kick, I believe, a 49-yard field goal with a few seconds left to win that game. So Iowa, this close from being 4-0 and probably ranked in the top 15 or 20 in the nation. And, that line, there's a lot of teams out there right now that are in that 3-1, 4-1 bowl.
Yep.
That how do you, pick one over the other? This team beat this team, but they lost to this team, etc. It's all going to shake out over the next several weeks. But Iowa, the line is 21 points. I said last week the line of 29-30 was way too much, and it didn't prove to be, obviously, with the way the Buckeyes went out and took care of business. But this one's got me, somewhat concerned. 3 full touchdowns over a great Iowa team. Of course, 2 years ago, Iowa came in here and Ohio State stopped their offense cold and won the game 54-10. And I want to recall maybe picked off like 3, 4, 5 turnovers. I don't know the exact number, but it was a bunch on the Iowa offense last time around. It's going to be a little bit different this time. This is McNamara at quarterback.
UOC.
And he is 1-0 all time as a starter against the Ohio State University with the 2021 win at Michigan. But that's like crediting the starting pitcher for winning a 10-6 game. It was more their running game at Michigan that day that really set them apart.
Yeah. As we look at Ohio State's defense and what Jim Knowles said, you mentioned Sonny Styles earlier. That has been the frustration for a lot of Buckeye fans, and understandably so. You go back and look at the film, and he's made some mistakes. And Jim Knowles actually said he thought he's played really good, but he talked about how he's been asked to do a lot of different things. He had to transition to linebacker. He was playing weak side linebacker. Then he played some middle linebacker when Cody Simon was out. I think there's something to that, but I also think there's something to you've got your Ohio State. You've got these guys. You've got other guys who have played linebacker. Arvell Reese, obviously, is the name that most people keep talking about. At some point, either Sonny has to be ready to play, because Jim Knowles said, he asked about Malcolm Rodriguez, who made the play for the Lions last night. You don't have time to develop here. You don't have time to wait. And so you need Sonny to start to pick it up more consistently, I think, in the coming weeks.
He has absolutely got to show up on Saturday. He and Cody Simon, Arvell Reese, whenever he's on the field, Caleb Downs. Those are probably the 4 most important players in the scheme this week, because Caleb Johnson, 222-pound running back from Iowa, was off last week, but he ran for over 200 yards the week before in the road win at Minnesota, 31-14. And I know it was Minnesota, but again, Iowa, conversely, we talked about Ohio State establishing the run. That's what Iowa most certainly is going to come in here and try and do on Saturday. And in some regards, maybe even try and shorten the game and limit the number of possessions that Ohio State gets in this game, so that Ohio State can't approach 35 or 40 points in this game. Try and keep this game in the 20s, where Iowa, just as Iowa State did to them, was in a position to steal it at the end. That's what Iowa's hope has to be in this game, because Ohio State simply has too much offense to be held down. Even if Iowa's playing great defense, I think Ohio State's going to have a counter for that, whether it's throwing the ball more to the tight end or more creativity in the run game, or whatever it may be. Ohio State's offensive line has been outstanding so far, given Howard The quarterbacks, good protection. As we said, the blitz pickups have been outstanding. So I think what Michigan State showed everybody is you do need to heat Howard up a little bit. You do need to get some pressure on him, because if you do, he could throw it up for grabs, as he did on the interception. He was under pressure and locked in on one receiver at Buca and threw it into double coverage. And as we were joking at the game, those two guys were fighting over the ball to intercept it. It may have gone through Zero's hands and 7 caught it. And then, my goodness, he returned it 30 yards, almost scored. They scored on the next play. When that's the only touchdown you give up, my goodness, this defense almost pitched a shutout.
Yeah.
I've joked about this bend but don't break defense. You don't want to be known as that, because at some point against a great offense, you will break. So you don't want that, obviously, to be your calling card, is that you're okay giving up big chunk plays and giving up yardage and allowing the team to get in the red zone. They had 3 stops in the red zone, 2 turnovers, and Cody Simon stopped the quarterback whack on 4th and 1. Yeah. In they asked Jim Knowles about that. Is that something you teach? He goes, no, that's instinct, that somebody read that play. Cody Simon talked about after the game how they thought on 4th down they would be running some quarterback sneak, and he put his nose in there. And I was watching in binoculars, and Pat can probably say, the first word out of my mouth is, no, sir.
Can't confirm.
He did not get that. Not, and then I always like to throw in, not even close, but that's just my little thing. And of course, poor Austin Ward was next to me, and I got the binoculars on the 2 plays that Jeremiah Smith makes, and I just start chuckling out loud, watching it through the binoculars in real time. I'm just like, oh my, just you can't even conjure how great those plays are.
Yeah.
I mean, those are once every several year play, and he happened twice in a span of 4 plays.
Yeah, and he may have more later in the year at some point, because
that's what apparently is going to happen.
Yeah. Last thing with the defense.
Only like 35 more games with him too.
Right,
so just,
enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. The last thing with the defense, and I asked Coach Knowles about this, the last 2 games, the Buckeyes have started slowly, and he admitted that's on me. I have to have these guys better prepared for the beginning of the games. But they have adjusted. And I know against Marshall, quarterback, I think Stone Earl left the game, which obviously made things a little bit easier. But against Michigan State, I think 60-some yards in the second half. Maybe it's a little more than that. I did the math yesterday. Point is, they are making adjustments, but you would like to see the plays being made in the first half. Now, some offenses are going to do some things differently than what you've seen on film. But as you get on into the schedule, can you continue to just be a second half defense? Not that that's the exact way to describe Ohio State, but they've been better in the second half. Or do they have to get these faster starts defensively?
I think as the competition improves, the defense is going to need to hone in on this a little bit closer. They play Oregon next week, and I'm harking back to when they played Oregon in the national championship game. And they let Oregon go right down the field like they were a knife going through butter. Well, they only scored 13 more points in the balance of the rest of the game. And Ohio State's offense had a huge day running the football, won the game 42-20. You can't count on the fact that your great offense is just going to overwhelm everybody else's defense. I mean, some matchups, yes.
Yeah.
Iowa, probably not. I mean, if Ohio State gets to 30 points in this game, they should feel really good about winning it, because I don't think Iowa's going to score close to 30 points against the Ohio State defense. So to me, I just look at it and I just think that, again, you gotta be picking up these concepts a little quicker in the first half. The Marshall game was a really bad one. They gave up a touchdown right before halftime, which is kind of like the cardinal sin we heard this week. They use that term middle eight. The last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half, they just blew Michigan State out of the water. So that was when that game was won, basically in the middle 2 periods, the second and third quarters. And you don't want to fall behind anybody, 10 points, 14 points, because your defense wasn't ready to play.
Yeah. Well, we will have plenty more this week as they get ready to take on Iowa. Steve's already got the videos uploaded on YouTube. He'll have Day's transcript shortly. We'll have plenty more this week. stay tuned on Bucknuts. Thanks, Steve. Dave's not here today. We miss him, but he'll be back next week.
Yep.
All right. See you guys.